Hi, thanks for everyone for joining us today. So today I'm gonna run you through how we could score 705 or 90 percentile plus on that. I understand most of us, even I was busy while I was working. So I shall introduce about myself and what we do at Open Admits and how this process works. I'll run you through the whole process of GMAT prep and how you could structure it. So let's go ahead. Yeah. So myself, I'm the partner consultant at Open Admits. We are an MBA admission consulting firm. We do work with master's students as well as bachelor students in undergrad and different programs. But I head the master's and MBA admission consulting at Open Admits. I've been admitted to 11 on 12 programs. So I do understand what it takes to get into a top B school. I'm a Columbia alumni, and I did get a 740 on GMAT and 334 on GRE myself. And we have had a 97% success conversion, which means that if I've worked with 100 students, I've had at least 97 of them receiving admits across different business schools. And Our students have got admitted into Harvard, Wharton, and other N7 and T15 programs. You can check the reviews on Poets and Cons. And So far, I've personally achieved around 9 million plus in total scholarships. And last year itself, we could get 1.9 million plus scholarships for our candidates. Yes. So just a quick run through what we do at Open Admits. So we start with structuring your profile. We do your profile positioning. We help you with the school selection. So we help you with the application strategy, essays, interview prep, and any other requirements that could get you to get admitted to top business school programs or any undergrad or master programs too. So we do offer personal guidance, and the strategy is tailored according to your application. Time to time, we offer feedback, and we do have strong results and outcomes. You can check our testimonials on Poets and Cons as well as on LinkedIn of the candidates who have successful admissions and scholarships. And yeah. So today we're gonna start with my own case study of how did I score 740 on GMAT because I was a bad test taker myself, but few things which I did that really improved me was I'm gonna run you through that process. So something which I did different from my previous year, was first thing I took a break from my previous attempts, which I couldn't. My previous score was 695 or approximately 690 because I had given a bold exam. And something I did different for the next year was this time I first started with fixing my date first. I booked my exam date first because many times what I would do is I would start preparing for the exam and then I would have a lot of distractions personally and professionally that would push me to give my attempt the next year. So I have made up my mind that this time I'm going to give my last attempt for GMAT, and I started with booking an exam date first, and then I've decided that within 50 or 60 days I'm going to finish this exam, and this would be my last attempt. So I would recommend the same thing to you candidates that always book the exam date first because you cannot keep pushing the dates. That's one of the biggest mistakes which we all do. And then start with the diagnostic mock. That's something I would recommend. In my case, I have I've given a lot of mocks since it was my third attempt. So what I exactly did was I used Manhattan Prep mocks. That was something new for me, and I even purchased purchase test from NBA.com. And fourth thing was this time I something I did different was I used a tracker. So you do get trackers. I'm going to talk more about it very soon. And review. This is something a different thing which I did in my last attempt. Reviewing the questions, whether it's right or wrong. I'm going to talk about it and the importance of that very soon in this presentation. So how do you work it out when you have a job? So I used to run my own entrepreneurship venture, and so I had to work sometimes 16 to 18 hours a day. So how would I manage time? Was first and foremost the biggest mistake which we all do is we try to study 6 to 8 hours on the weekend, and then we feel that we have done a lot. We take a break. Don't do that, because that would actually, you next time you sit down to study, you lose. You need to go back to previous basics or fundamentals, and then come back to your preparation to catch up with what you have studied before. So I wouldn't recommend that. So then what I did was I structured a time, like I fixed my time like morning 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., but I have to do it every day, or 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. So always structure it and keep it fixed, but have to study every day. That's very important. So a couple of things which you shouldn't do is, do not stress yourself. Do not be like, uh, do not prepare yourself to study only on the weekends. Don't do that. Do not depend only on the practice tests and be happy like, okay, I've scored this much, I'm happy about this. No. And another most important thing which candidates get overwhelmed is by, because they have multiple resources. Many times candidates collect a lot of resources and they feel that, okay, I'm going to work on this. And then you are like confused, like, where do I start? Well, what do I do? Or which resource should I use? Don't do that. That's not how it works. Simple points which I think should help you is study every day, at least for 1 hour. Don't even fix it like, don't do it like 30 minutes, or, sometimes people think that 15 minutes we sit down, we solve 5 to 10 questions. Okay, I remember this topic, this is good for the day. And then they come back tomorrow and they study 3 to 4 hours and then they take a break the third day. Don't do that. Fix it every day 2 hours. But I would say minimum 1 hour is very important. And when you fix that 1 hour, try to learn something new along with, reviewing what you have studied yesterday. It's very important. So always study something new, at least for first 30 days, and learn a new topic. Don't, you know, and most importantly, fix a time. Don't fix a time. Don't be like, I'm going to study 5 a.m. this morning. Tomorrow I'm going to study 6 p.m. after work. Don't do that, because, another reason is, when you fix that time, your focus level increases, because this exam is mostly about focus. It's I'm sure that 80 to 90% of candidates have solved these questions at some point of their career, either at school level or at 11th, 12th, or engineering level at some point. So we know how to solve a specific question if we have the time. But what we are missing is the focus in those 2 hours, because it's an adaptive exam, and things keep changing, the difficulty keeps changing, and we need to train ourselves for that time and focus those 2 hours. It's very important. And make sure you give yourself 60 days, and let your parents, friends, everyone know that you're not available for that 50 to 60 days. Make it a point that you are focusing and giving everything in those 50 to 60 days. Because a mistake which I would do is I would stay for 25 days straight, and then I need to work on this specific project, or I need to watch something, an event within the family or something. Don't do that mistake. You need to let everyone know that you're not available for 50 to 60 days. Yes, I understand work cannot be avoided, but try to reduce distractions. So I suggest morning 5 a.m., because sometimes you may be tired in the evenings. Okay. Another thing is, take very seriously. This is a very important point, which even while you're working, take very seriously. Don't just take a mock and satisfy yourself. Okay, I have a 590 or 595, and I'm in focus edition 595 or 695 or 655, and then be like, okay, I scored less, I can't do anything. No, don't do that. Or if you score 695, don't be even happy about it. What you need to do is you need to review the test. So test can be 2 hours, but the review session takes normally 3 to 4 hours or 5 hours. I used to review very intensely. I used to spend a lot of time in review. I'm going to speak more about it, how to review your exams or how to review your questions. So most importantly, you want to score high. Consistency, structure, and don't just overdo anything, and don't just take breaks, or don't be satisfied. Just keep consistent. That is the most important thing I would recommend. And like I've written here, it's not a 10-hour study day. but it's a disciplined 1 hour sessions at least every day. Because sometimes you might be busy, but 5 to 7 p.m. you have to be there every day for 50 to 60 days. Now, you know how the exam format is. If you're new to the program, let me share quickly run you through it. So we have quantitative reasoning, that's 21 questions, 45 minutes. Topics tested are arithmetic and algebra. They are subdivided into multiple topics. Verbal reasoning, there are 23 questions, 45 minutes. It includes critical reasoning and reading comprehension. So they have removed sentence correction. That's something really good. When I have given G sentence correction, that was one of my strongest areas which I focused on. Okay, data insights. We have 20 questions, 45 minutes. I think they have included it data sufficiency, and few other extra four topics are graphics interpretation, table analysis, multi-source reasoning, and two-part analysis. So if you are one of those candidates who are prepared for adaptive exams after your 11th or 12th grade, I'm sure you have done data insights, but something new which is slightly different from other adaptive exams is data sufficiency. So, it's the topic has been in GMAT for a while. It's just that they have included that in data insights to the format. So an approach which I always use when tackling topics is I never studied the exam in a broader level, which means that I would break down the exam. I would create a tree map like understanding what's quantitative reasoning. Okay, we have algebra. I would subdivide the topics. I would understand my strengths, and I would focus and use a tracker to divide it into strong, moderate, and weak areas. I wouldn't try to tackle everything at once. That's the biggest mistake because when you do that, you're all over the place. So you need to break down topic by topic, use a tracker, understand your strengths, weaknesses, and depending on your skill set, we need to start working on it because we need to understand our strengths so that you score high in the areas where you're stronger and areas where you're weaker, you need to spend more time to improve it. Sometimes what I used to do is I used to struggle with reading comprehension, so I would push my critical reasoning and sentence correction scores really high. But another thing which I would do was I would make sure that I would score 100 percentile or 99 percentile my Quant. That's something which I would do because I decided that there's no alternative for that because Quant has always been my strength. So I've always targeted to score 51, which was old score. So I will score 51 with no alternatives for that. So I would practice heavily and prepare myself for that. So where do you start if you're new to the program? Or if you're in the middle of the program and this is your second or third attempt after a long break? First thing, give a mock. Sit down for 2 3 hours 2 hours without any distractions. Make sure you're well prepared, you have a transfer. Give a mock, understand the format, get a baseline score, identify what are the timing issues, and then identify the strengths and weaknesses, and then be very acquainted with the exam. That's very important. Okay, when you give an exam, you need to understand what's happening in the exam. Don't just give a mock for the sake of it to see, okay, where do I get a score? No, that's not. That's one of the things, but don't just give it for the sake of giving it. Understand what's happening in the exam. Try to figure out what kind of questions they are checking on. What are they, what are they looking from a candidate? Understand it. Don't just randomly sit on giving the exam. And then I know candidates, what they do is they give a verbal and then they take a break, then they come back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's not clear.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So, yeah, sit down and focus on that. That's very important. You give a full exam with 2 hours focus on the exam. Don't just randomly take breaks. So, how would I structure this study plan for working professionals? First, I would say book your exam, take a mock exam, and then after the exam, review it deep, and then build a tracker. This is our immediate priorities because after you give a mock exam, you know strengths, you know weaknesses, you know what kind of topics you need to work on, or what's happening in the exam. It's very important you understand everything and prepare a tracker and review it very clearly. And then the next 4 to 30 days, choose your prep resources. build the fundamental skills, and then also work on official guide questions. So this is something I used to do. I used to stick to official guide apart from my prep plan or prep resources, which I used. So I'm going to talk about prep resources very soon. After 30 days, I would give my second mock. And then this time, after giving the second mock, once I've reviewed it, since I've already prepared, used my resources of prep, and I've done official guide, I'm going to check where am I standing with mock 2. After I review it, I'm going to now start working on medium and hard questions. And for that, I have used GMAT Club Question Bank. The reason I use GMAT Question Bank is because there are many experts who give their answers on this topics or questions, and that would help me understand how can I answer a specific question in different ways, or where am I lacking, or how do I strengthen certain core areas, and it would also help me to improve timing. So it's very important that when you're solving a question, focus on accuracy for first 30 days. And then the speed picks up by itself. Don't worry about, I know students, what they do is, okay, I've solved this question correctly, but I've solved it in 4 minutes. I understand, that's fine. But the key focus is to build accuracy so that if a specific question is given to you, you shouldn't commit a mistake again. You should understand what's the core strategy behind solving that question. And this I learned a lot through GMAT Club, because if I would solve a question and if there was a mistake, I would review it. I would listen to the experts. If it was correct, I would still review it because I would like to know, is there another easy way to tackle it? So that's very important. That's why I use GMAT Club. And then after doing for another 5 to 6 days or 7 days, I would then take the third mock. This would again review the errors, update my tracker, understand what's happening. And this is the time when I would refine my pacing strategy. Yes, because after 45 days of prep, you got to, or 35 days of prep, you got to review your pacing strategy. That's very important because after once accuracy is fixed, concepts are fixed, I would work on fixing my speed. Okay. And then I would go for fourth mock, which is normally a purchase. You can purchase those exams from MBA. At this time, try to narrow your focus on the topics that you're making silly mistakes, sharpen your overall exam strategy. This is how I think it would work out really well at this point to understand what's happening and reviewing. So using a tracker, that's very important. Okay. Keep engaging your topics in the last final days, and avoid panic, and don't start new materials. This is something I think many of us would do in the last days, but just because we are struggling with a specific topic, we go to a new resource. Don't do that. Trust your preparation. Use the same strategy which you have used to solve previous questions. Don't start a new strategy right before the exam. People think that, okay, this is not working out, I'll shift my strategy. It's not suggestible. Okay, now, so just another thing, always study weekdays. Don't just start on the weekends, but rather you use weekends for a mock exam. And once you give a mock exam on Saturday morning, let us say, another thing is, I would recommend giving mock exams at the same time when you're giving the main exam. That's very important, because I did this mistake once. So what I did was I gave an exam morning 4 a.m. because I had exam stress too. I gave an exam morning 4 a.m. My exam was at 9 a.m. in the center. So I gave my exam at 4 a.m. I scored a 740, to be frank. But when I gave the main exam, I scored 690. So, that was a mistake I feel I've done because most of my prep was always around 10:30 in the morning or 10:30 to 12:30. So I should have chosen the same time for the exam. I would recommend that fix a time which makes you comfortable, but at the same time make sure you build that focus and train yourself for that. And okay, once you fix that time, let us say you give your exam on a weekend, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11:30. You give your exam 11:30. I would say have your lunch, take a break, sit down from 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock that evening, review it. Review for 2 to 3 hours. People think you need to understand what does the word review mean here. Review doesn't mean that, okay, I've got this algebra probability question wrong, this specific topic wrong. and work time. I've got this wrong. Okay, this is what it is. Okay, 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 fine. Don't do that. It's not like that. Take the question, Google it. Most of the questions have solutions being provided on Google. So you can go to GMAT Club, or you could go to Beat the GMAT, or different forums and read through different solutions. But I used to do that even with the correct questions. So I would recommend you also do that, because they could be someone who could be answering a better strategy, who could be providing better strategy to answer an exam. So spend review. The more you review, trust me, your score can boost by 5 to 10 points easily. So please review it every exam. If you're not, if you're busy on Saturday, do it on Sunday. You don't need to study new topic. That review is worth more than studying a new topic. Okay. And so, like I've told you, fix a steady time, communicate boundaries to your family and friends. And third thing is, this is very important. Another difference was, because I used to study in my bedroom and I used to give my mock exams in my bedroom. I realized that I was so struggling with the text anxiety at the center. So what made a difference was I started studying in coffee shops. I started studying in reading rooms and libraries. I would go and study in random places, and I would solve questions. So train yourself for that. It's very important. You study in different places. It's gonna help you get over it. Don't try to solve everything at once, or don't be overwhelmed thinking that, okay, I've missed this topic, I need to do something. No, just keep repeating consistency and discipline, and that should get you there. Okay, so let's talk about tracker. Tracker is very important. I used an Excel tracker. There are certain trackers available online. There is a tracker on, so you could prepare your tracker. You could download it from online, or you could change it accordingly. So, what are the key metrics to track? I would use a topic and source. Like, let us say, what's the topic? Let's say, speed, time, distance, and and the source could be official guide. How many questions you have attempted? 10 questions. How many correct, wrong? Even Manhattan Prep provides you a tracker. You could use a similar tracker. So, what's your accuracy percentage? And what's the timing you have utilized? Error type, and what's the preview? What's your action plan for that? Okay, you have done something right. What's the action plan? Could you find multiple solutions? Okay, cool. That's you found a solution that actually works for you. So you could come up with a better solution, and you could say, okay, review this solution. And so remember one thing, you cannot afford to make the same mistake again during your preparation process. If you have solved a specific question and if it's right, find a better way. And if you think your strategy is the best way to the solution, keep it. But make sure you don't do that mistake in the future, because what happens is sometimes when we are very confident with our strategy, a mistake. This happens at a advanced level during preparation. What I used to do was sometimes my confidence level was so high in quant. So when I used to read a question, I used to solve 60% of question in my mind. Let us say X is running 10 times, X is faster than Y by so and so, and or his age is so and so times Y. So I would make the calculations in my mind, and then I would put the final. I would just do the solving on the paper. This was a mistake I used to do. So how I made I prepared an action plan for that. What I made was that to avoid silly mistakes was I would put it on the paper right from the point I read my question. So I would put the word problems step by step on the paper, so that I write down every point and I do every solving on the paper. This used to boost my score a lot, because it's a silly mistake which we normally do. So try to avoid that. Few common error categories are conceptual gaps. Yes, you need to go step by step on that. Careless or silly errors, like I've told you one. Timing issues, and then you have used the wrong method. Maybe sometimes you get answers correctly with the wrong method, and you may be satisfied. Okay, I got it right. I don't need to check this. No, Google the question always. You may get answers can be correct, because sometimes you may get lucky, but I wouldn't recommend that. Don't be satisfied. Review it. Find always a better way to solve a question. That should be your target. Always find a better way. And second thing, don't ever repeat the mistake. This is something many people don't focus on. And another thing is misreading the question. Under stress, we all misread a question. So what I used to do is I used to divide the question. I used to break down the question. So do that. Don't read the question. Don't try to read two, three lines at once. Break down the question. Don't rush to read two, three lines. And and one of the error categories which I used to use was trap answer selections. You know, we used to have this 3:2 or 2:3, where two answers are very close, and it depends. It depends on the question. It's an error category. So learn to understand how do you figure out the trap answer selections. So the more you practice, you'll figure that process. That's why it's very important that you review different ways of solving these questions. And Tracker's key focus is not just to tell you what happened, but also to tell you what you should do next. Okay, like which resource you need to tackle on, what's your action plan for review, what do you want to do next, tomorrow or day after, or keep doing that. And always use the tracker even for the preparation, not just mock exams. I used it even for the preparation. So if I used a topic or a source, I would repeatedly update it at the end of my study that day. So this is how things could look. This is like Quant, specific topic algebra, source, attempted 20, correct 14, accuracy, timing issue, and revise inequalities, takeaway and fix. You can prepare Excel sheet or tracker according to you, or you could use Claude or anything to help you do that. So you could just keep updating on Claude, what you have done, or Claude or ChatGPT. Just copy paste all your process and leave your voice notes on it. That could give you a tracker and keep updating it. But always, the most important thing is the spark, take away and fix. Don't just be happy that your tracker, timing issue, okay, I'll figure it out. No, don't do that. Always go and find better way of solving that specific questions. If you have got it right, check if you can, if it's 1 minute, 50 seconds, check if you can do in 1 minute. If you've done it 3 minutes and you've got it right, it doesn't make sense. So try to work on it to bring it down to 1.5. Look for new strategies to fix it. If you have got wrong, Google it, try to find different ways of solving it. Okay? Okay. Now, this is very important thing. What I did was during my first attempt was I used to try to work on all the areas in a single go. Don't ever do that. Like you cannot be an expert overnight in quant. You may be an engineer who's done a lot of quant, but what I realized is I cannot be an expert within 1 2 days on all the topics. Rather, I would break it down and then maximize my core areas. I have made up my mind that I'm going to score 51 on quant no matter what. So for that, I would break down, and then I would work on strong areas to push them, and weaker areas also I would try to improve them using the tracker study. So sometimes what a mistake I used to do was I used to love probability and permutations combinations. So I would spend most of my time on those areas, which sometimes I would make silly mistakes on other areas. So what I did was I kept my permutations, PNC and probability keep moving. I used to make sure I was strong in those areas. I started focusing on my weak areas also, understanding what kind of errors I'm doing and how do I push my score. Okay, so that's very important. For example, if you are quant is your strength, make it your weapon, work on it, make sure there's no alternative for scoring less than 50 or 51. I mean, as per the current pattern, you score 90 plus percentile or 99 max percentile. Don't satisfy yourself that you're scoring like 49 or and make yourself like, okay, I'm happy with it. I don't want to push it more. No, don't do that. Maximize it. Maximize it. If you're an engineer, maximize the score. There's no alternative for that. If critical reasoning is your strength, push accuracy. You need to push it max. This is something I realized. I was good at critical reasoning and sentence correction, old format, but now we don't have it. So, sentence correction, but I would push for it. If and RC, I couldn't tackle very strongly with RC, but I would try to, you know, follow different methods, and then I would fix my strategy that worked, and then I would push it. So understand your core strengths, push it, max it. You need to max your score on that. I understand data interpretation is mixed, and so what I would recommend for that is break down the topics and then train with the question type. That's very important. Don't try to solve all types of DI at single go. Break it down and then go question by the question type. It's very important. Okay. Okay. Why review matters? Scores go up in review. Yes, absolutely. You know, why did you get a specific question wrong? Why did you get a specific question right? Was it timing, carelessness, or silly mistakes? Figure it out. Use update your tracker. And how do I avoid repeating? You cannot afford to repeat a mistake. I'm gonna tell it again and again. Don't repeat the mistake, and don't repeat it, especially under pressure. You need to be very focused. You need to understand the strategy, and it happens with practice. The only thing is review. Spend more time on review. Make sure you understand different ways of solving the question and choose a strategy. And that's it. Keep applying that again and again and again. Practice, practice, practice through GMAT question bank. GMAT Club question bank. GMAT Club has a navigator that allows you to work on such specific questions. You can choose what type of questions you want to work on based on the topic and keep repeating it. Okay. Yes. Okay. Another point, I saw this mistake with a very close friend of mine. So what he used to do is he used to show me his drive and he used to tell me, okay, listen, I have these resources from Manhattan, from EGMAT, from blah blah blah, different resources. He used to collect all the resources and he used to say, I'm working on these questions. I should score 700 plus. I wouldn't recommend that. Don't collect resources, too many resources. It's not required. It's not. See, the only reason why you need resources is purpose of that is understand what is the prep that works out for you. And then what is the question bank from where you want to solve questions. That's it. That's how you build a system. Too many resources is of no use for anyone. Okay. So how do you prepare that? So first, start with a prep course. I know most of the candidates today attending this session are for working candidates. So choose a prep course. Don't choose do-it-yourself courses like Manhattan book resources. Since you're busy, Manhattan. I have used Manhattan Prep. It has helped me because I needed something on hard copy books, and I would solve a lot of. I was used to reading books, so I would do that. But then, since the strategy didn't work out for me, I did shift to EGMAT. But I'm not going to suggest any prep course tonight. But I would recommend use a prep course since you all are working. So you need a structure for your whole preparation process. So the first 30 days, I would recommend a prep course. It could be Target Test Prep, EGMAT, or Manhattan Prep. They offer it. So choose a prep course. Now, sometimes I get this question, which prep course is the best? See, it's very difficult for anyone to suggest that because it depends on many things. Like EGMAT worked out for me for critical reasoning and reading comprehension strategies, but I also depended on Power Prep. I also did Manhattan Prep. And because I did these prep courses, I had time. I had time with it because I gave multiple attempts. I cleared it in third attempts. I got 740. But what I did was because I've learned from my mistakes, and you, but by using multiple prep courses, my purpose was very clear. If a specific prep course did not work, I would shift the strategy. But these days, there are so many YouTube free resources. Many prep courses are offering you free sessions. So I would recommend you to understand what is the strategy that would work out for you for a specific topic. You know, I'm not saying that you buy a prep course based on the topic. You could check which prep course works out the max for you. Let us say you take EGMAT, you buy it out, and you're working on it. Everything is going good, except that DI you're struggling and they're not helping it. The strategy is not working out for you. Choose another course that has a very strong strength in DI because it normally happens that most of the tutors may not be strong in all the areas. Yeah, or most of the prep courses, or they are really good, but it might not be working out well for you because your thought process is different. You're looking more of a framework type models. You're working more like a fundamental, step by step process. So, it might not work out for you. So shift it, but use a prep course. Don't just buy the books because prep course keep you aligned, structured. Once this is done, use official guides and official mocks only to solve the practice questions initially. Okay, it's very important. Once this is done, use GMAT club tests. So, and then once GMAT club tests are used, use the navigator on GMAT club tests, question banks, understand where you are. So another thing that really helped me score high on Quant was I would repeatedly do, I would repeatedly put my Quant score by using Quant questions from GMAT club. So I would do the questions, I would review it. Sometimes the questions can be repeating, but it's okay. I would still make sure that I am not committing the same mistake. I am solving it the same strategy which I wanted to solve, applying the same strategy which I wanted to apply. Okay, so avoid these pitfalls. Jumping across too many books. Don't buy cheap materials. Many times, people don't invest on books. They think that it's okay. I have these sources available online. Let me use it. No, use online to evaluate which course works up for you. But always don't, try to purchase even it's required. Try to invest on this prep course because this exam is everything for you. So another thing, solving more without reviewing. So this is something I did in my second attempt. I would solve 200, 300 sentence correction questions at that point. I would build this question bank. And I would never, like 60 questions per day, I would sit down and just keep solving, solving, solving. But, don't, but then I would spend less time on reviewing. That's really bad. Always review it, use a tracker, and review the questions because it's very important, like I told you. And just because, yeah, quantity. Because I used to solve 60 questions per day, 3 days or 4 days, that would be like 200 to 240 questions. I would be so satisfied. Wow, I finished all these questions. But it didn't help me boost my mock exam scores. I would still be at the same scoring level, and that's because I wasn't reviewing. Always review. It's always quality improvement over quantity. Okay, why you need to invest in this prep courses and why in this prep process? Because a high GMAT score helps you with scholarships, with better opportunities. Even sometimes most of the consulting companies they do ask. Sometimes I've seen candidates asking for GMAT scores. But it doesn't mean that they're not. It doesn't mean that you need to only give GMAT, and that's how things happen. No, there's much deeper evaluation into it. But I'm just telling you, always try to invest scoring high on GMAT, get better scholarships and better opportunities. So sometimes, yes, improving GMAT could get you off waitlist. It has worked out for my candidates. They have, during the waitlist strategy, they have come up with 15, 20 points or 30 points improvement. It worked out. Scholarship leverages is very high. You could get a huge scholarships because I know a candidate with 2 years of work experience. This year, she worked with me and she got into Stern, just 2 years work experience. She had a 735 on GMAT and she has got 100% scholarship from Stern. NYU. So I know someone who scored really well on, in fact, on GI, but and she has got 150K scholarship. So, and I'm not saying the profiles are. You might be questioning, are they from top undergrad schools? No, they are from tier two, tier one, and tier two schools. Not just IITs or top schools, but yes, they have got these scholarships based on their GMAT scores. So, and yeah, if you have 50 days, always have a structured course that helps from mis-sequencing your preparation process. Yes, at the same time, I would also want to say that GMAT and GRE tests are not the only ones that are not everything. Okay, there are many things we need to have a overall holistic review of your application because schools are evaluating academically, personally, and professionally. Okay. Sometimes candidates may be like, okay, I'm going to keep giving GMAT again and again and again, but without understanding where are they struggling, it's fine. I do have candidates who've gone into NCR and Kellogg, and in fact, the student at Kellogg 655, she got a scholarship too. She had 4 years of work experience at a SaaS company in India. So I'm telling you that it is possible. 324 has got students, ISB, and Cornell admits. And most importantly, a strong GMAT can offset a lower undergrad GPA. Many times people may not be able to perform well on undergrad due to some personal reasons. So GMAT is something where you could show the platform that yes, you are prepared for the managing the handling the curriculum at the school. Okay. So always try to focus on scoring well on GMAT, and that should be your only target for 60 days if you plan to apply to top programs this year. So all the attendees for this session, we do offer a free profile review. Reach out to us. You can visit our website on openadmits.com and you can book a free profile review. Myself or my colleagues would be happy to run you through your profile and go through your resume and give you personal guidance on how you could prepare yourself for the top school programs. And yeah, right now I'm available to take any questions for next 5 minutes. If anyone have any questions, please, I would be happy to answer.
Hi, my name is Like I have a doubt. So is there any issue like if a people take GRE or GMAT focus? Like, is there any like issue like at the time of admission? And my profile is like as of now like I'm only 60% in my undergrad. So what is the GMAT score should I target or should I target to offset that to get into T15 at least T15 or M7 B schools? And I'm targeting 427.
Okay, cool. So a couple of things here. One, let me answer the first question. To be frank, it doesn't make a difference in terms of the admissions process. I've had students with, like I've shared, 324 getting into top business school, top 15, and even scores like 655. So it doesn't really make a difference. However, you told me that you've scored 60 percentile on your GPA. Another question that my next question is like, where did you do your undergrad? Because what I have realized is that it depends on what program you have done and which school you have attended. Okay, that's first thing. So when you put up your application to a school, a profile is evaluated on three areas: academic evaluation, personal evaluation, professional evaluation. So they want to know, can you manage this curriculum? So 60 percentile should be countered with a high GMAT or GRE. So I do have a candidate this year. He had a 6.3 GPA and he got into Cornell with 40% scholarship. And his score was somewhere around 740 old score. So, however, he was working for KPMG as a risk analyst consultant. So, there are many factors that go into this holistic evaluation. So yes, GMAT or GRE doesn't matter. But if you're asking me what's the score you need to get to T15, I would recommend to push it to at least 695 or above.
Okay. To answer your question, I will say that I did an undergrad in five years course. Like it was a dual degree, BTech plus MTech in computer science engineering. And the issue with my college, or you say, was that we don't have a proper grading system. Like above 90, you are scoring A plus grade, or above 80, you are scoring A grade. It was a relative grading system. So like the grading was decided on the basis of average score student score in the classroom. So if a student the high score is 80, so 80 would be A plus grade, and there it got would go down. If the average is if the highest score is 95, then at 95 would be A plus grade. So if a student in electronics having score 80, so he might get even A plus grade. But same student if he's sitting in CSE and they both are studying both maths 101, so CSE might get B grade and one might get A plus grade. So that's how it changes. And towards
Okay,
the
I'll speak about that. This is
and
something.
so one more thing, I'm currently working as an AI engineer and I'm looking to pivot to finance, investment banking. And for that, I'm doing certifications and all to just to prepare my profile. So like, just give me a rough idea for that.
Yeah. So to answer the first question, every top school has their own way of evaluating a candidate. So if you're saying that you have scored certain percentile and you have scored 60 percentile and you're saying the max is only 18 percentile in a specific program, schools already know that because they have their own evaluation scaling grading system. So they already know that and they would be knowing your school and how the scoring system works and everything. So you don't have to really worry about that process. Okay. However, if they are seeing 60 percentile on your transcripts, they also would have a deeper look on your transcripts to understand how did others score or how is the grading system. how is the grading system maintained by your school? So don't overthink about that process. And a point which I would always suggest my students is there are certain factors you cannot change. So don't worry about changing them. Don't worry about changing the variables. The only thing you can control right now is your GMAT. Okay, so score as high as possible. That's first thing. And schools have their own evaluation system, so you don't want to really push yourself trying to understand that. Okay, and if you have scored low on any specific subject due to any reason, always put it on extra essay. It's very important. And your second question was you told you're in AI, you want to move into finance. So this is what it is. This is a very, if you're asking me if that profile is really good, it's very difficult for me to answer that question right now. I would rather look at your resume, understand where you're working and how I can connect dots between AI and finance, or what's your previous experience in finance, and how you can contribute to the finance in the future. So we need to connect the dots and do a more specific evaluation for that. Okay. So it would be difficult for me to immediately give a solution to that question. Okay.
That helps. Thank you.
Anyone else who have questions? Okay, cool. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for attending this session. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and through our website. I would be happy to answer. Or you can also email me at sridhar@openadmins.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn for profile reviews. I would be happy to do that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.